And I feel him stiffen up. He's like, oh, like I'm not really like in a place to do this. I almost proposed to my ex, blah, blah. And I'm just like, oh my God. Oh my God, what have I done?
I'm Emily Calloway, and this is Kismet. Kismet is a podcast featuring your true love stories. Today, I'm speaking with Melissa, who's sharing her story about how reconnecting with an old neighbor led her to love. Hi, Melissa. Thank you so much for joining me on Kismet today.
Thank you so much for having me, Emily.
This is a long time in coming, so I'm excited to chat with you and hear about your
Sorry
story.
about all the rescheduling.
Oh gosh, it's summer. Summer, back to school for you, and just all the chaos that summer brings. World Cup over here, like few weeks where I was basically like every day was a little bit insane. But yeah, I'm glad that we were able to fit some time on the books and chat. Yes. So I'd love to start out by just hearing a little bit about you, who you are, your story.
I'm from Hong Kong. I think of myself as a third culture kid. I moved to the States with my mom when I was 13. And then that was the Bay Area, and then moved down to LA for college, and then was here for a few years, then moved to New York. I've just moved around a bit. Moved to New York. I've lived in Russia for a little bit. And then now I'm back in LA. And I've been back here since 2020. Yes. And in between there was like a little stint in Europe that's like kind of part of my story with my now husband. So I'm in LA now. I've been in tech for most of my career, but kind of transitioning out of that. I mean, not transitioning. I'm just like, I'm doing a master's in sustainability right now, and maybe that'll go back into tech, maybe not. So we'll see.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, so many different places that you've lived. I love it. So I'd love to hear just about the lead up to meeting your person. So talk to me about sort of, how you felt about dating, if you were dating, like what your sort of place in life was with relationships before meeting your now husband.
Okay, yeah. So we started dating when I was 24, so I was pretty young. But we had met in college. So I think I met him when I was like 18. Is that right? I either my 18th or 19th birthday, I know he was the one that like bought the alcohol for me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So in exchange for some like Hawaiian rolls, like that's what he asked for as like payment.
I think you ended up on the better end of that deal.
Yeah, I know. I was like, that's what you want, really? He's like, yeah, just want some rolls. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
So we were kind of, friendly acquaintances in college, but we didn't start dating until a few years after college. So I feel like I've always been, I guess, like lucky in love, maybe, or at least like I feel lucky in love. Like I've actually never like sought out a boyfriend. It's always just happened. I guess I'm lucky in that like I've always dated guys who were already my friends. And it's always like started from friendship. I've gone on maybe like 3 proper dates in my life with people that I didn't know already, and they were pretty much all kind of ridiculous and like terrible.
Would you consider yourself sort of a serial monogamist, or did you have breaks between those partners?
Yeah. I had breaks, and I've never like, I was never, during those breaks, I was never like, ooh, I want another boyfriend. And actually, until my husband, I never tried to become somebody's girlfriend. I was always like, yeah, this is cool. And it was always them kind of like pushing for like, oh, be my girlfriend. And I'm like, all right, fine. I guess. Sure. I guess we're like hanging out a lot, so I feel like that's always been the vibe with me. And then with my husband, it was like a notable thing because for the first time, I was like, wow, not that I didn't really like my ex-boyfriends, but I didn't have that feeling of like, oh my God, I want to be this guy's girlfriend.
Yeah.
It
It
was
was like
that.
you were, it was almost like, it sounds like you were being chosen almost, and you just kind of like went with it. Like maybe this is
Mhm.
how it's supposed to be versus
Yeah.
like being an active chooser also in that sort of situation, maybe.
Yeah, and it's again, like, I feel like that makes it sound like I was, like, iffy on them. I was, I was really, like, into those guys, but, uh, there wasn't that pull to be like, "I gotta be your girlfriend."
Yeah.
I don't know, it was just, like, a different vibe, and then with my husband, I was like, "What is this feeling?"
I mean, I respond to that, resonate with that. I remember at a point in college, like I always was in a relationship. I always like had somebody, when I was in college. And there was a point where I was like, what am I doing? I'm like sort of non-committal with all of these people, but like, I mean, I enjoyed them. Same with you. I was like,
Yeah,
enjoyed spending time with them. They were friends, etc. But it just never felt quite right. And so I had to take that moment and be like, wait, what do I really want? Like, is this, so I
yeah,
think that's part of also just youth and trying to, figure out what you like and who you like and what you want from
yeah,
life and everything too. So
yeah,
you met him. Let's go back to, I guess, the very beginning. Before, I guess it sounds like you became official or became serious
yeah,
boyfriend, girlfriend when you were 24, but you said you met him in college and that
yes.
he bought you alcohol for your birthday. So I'm curious sort of like how you met, whether it was through class or whatever, and what that initial feeling was. Like, were you into him out the gate, or was it, was he like, ooh, that guy's cute out the gate? Or was it kind of
Yeah.
like just friendship vibes that over time you're like, oh wait.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so, I met him because he lived in the apartment directly above me my
Mm.
sophomore year and his junior year. I mean, that's he lived in the apartment directly above me. I really met him because I became good friends with his roommate,
Hmm.
who had a crush on me. Like, he that there was, like, a something there. So I spent a lot of time with his roommate. We were also, like, in a class together. We're like I got to know him because we did a class project together, so then I would be in his apartment because I lived right below, and then I met his roommates. And Kevin is my husband's name. Kevin, would just be, like, in the apartment. We kind of became friendly through this, but we didn't hang out a lot. We didn't I think back then it was, like, we were on AIM, so we would, like, be on
Hmm.
AIM and, like, chatting sometimes, but we weren't super close. We were just friendly. I always thought he was cute, but it was never like a super active present thing, you know? It was just like, "Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, like, he's kinda cute." He just has a very, like he has a very calm vibe that is, like it's, like, the kind that you feel safe around because you're like, "This guy's not trying to, like"
Yeah. He's
I
not
don't know.
being aggressive or,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so that's how we met, and then what happened, it was a few years after college, I saw a photo of him on Facebook, and he was in a fountain. It's like a very distinctive fountain in a park in Hong Kong that I grew up going to. Like, I grew up 5 minutes from this park in Hong Kong. He's from Arizona, so I'm like, he has no business being in Hong Kong. I mean, not no business, but, I was like, "What is this guy doing in Hong Kong? How random." And so I messaged him on I, like, commented on it, like, "Hey, what were you doing in Hong Kong? That's so random." And we started Facebook messaging. Um, this is a few years after college, so I graduated in 2010, and I think this was in 2013. So,
Hmm.
we started messaging on Facebook. We realized that we're both still in LA, and we're like, "Hey, like, let's go catch up." So we go to a bar, we get a drink together, we're just hanging out. He had just gone through a major breakup. He was with his ex for 4 years, which at that time was a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. During this whole, like, I guess the time that from when you graduated or he graduated to this point where you reconnected, did you guys keep in touch at all? Or were you just sort of Facebook, one of those people I added back in the days where Facebook, you have a million friends on Facebook. Was it that sort of situation?
I probably didn't talk to him for like 3 years, but I mean, I will admit that I saw this photo on Facebook because I went to his profile. I was like,
Oh, okay.
"What's Kevin Crumey up to?" You know?
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, we didn't really keep in touch, but it was, I mean, we were like, we were friendly.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, yeah, like what? And again, I was still friends with his roommate back in the day. And so, like, he would come up once in a while in
Mhm.
conversation. But we had no contact really. Um, so then, yeah, we go out to the bar, we like have this drink, we catch up. He shares with me that he's just gone through this big breakup. He was doing a PhD in neuroscience at the same college that we met at. We went to USC, and so he was still at USC. He was doing his PhD in neuroscience there, but he was quitting that program
Mhm.
and mastering out, and then like had this whole crazy, like, he was going to go to Japan to do this like fellowship thing, and then he was going to go to Scotland, and then he had this bike trip planned, like a cross country bike trip, like bicycle trip, and I was like, okay, wow. Um, so he was like in a big period of transition, and I'm giving him my updates, like not as drastic as his, but I had also been thinking about moving to New York already, so we
Mhm.
were just kind of like sharing and catching up and hanging out. So then that was like great, we're like, cool, like this was nice, we part ways. I want to say it's like a few days later, I was at a party, it was a bar's 1 year anniversary, and a friend of mine, her cousins own the bar, so we were there, and they were having an open bar night to celebrate their first anniversary, and it was close by to where I knew he worked, and so I was like, oh hey, I'd been trying to text him all night, like, hey,
Yeah.
you should come by.
Mhm.
And I was with a bunch of friends, and I had this one friend who, like, I think he was like maybe trying to make some move, but he was like, he kept kind of being like, who are you texting? Like, stop being
Yeah.
rude, like, kind of like, what are you doing, right? And so I never got this text out to him until after, like, it was like 10 minutes before the open bar was closing. I
Oh my
like
gosh.
finally get this text out to him, and he's like, yeah, like, I'll come by. And by that point, like, my friends were starting to leave. I was super tired, and I was like, "Hey, you know what? Like, I might just leave." And he was like, "I'm already on my way. If you leave, you are dead to me." I was like,
Oh my goodness.
"Okay, I guess I have to stay." Another group of friends comes in, so, I'm hanging out with them, and then he gets there, and I'm mostly hanging out with him at this point, like, getting drinks with him at the bar, and I mean, I was probably, I had been drinking, but I feel like I was more tired than drunk, and so, but
Mhm.
it was the same effect, I was like kind of inebriated, on both like tiredness and alcohol, and we start like dancing together, and then we start making out, and like this is how it happens, and
Uh-huh.
I think we made out for the next 3 hours, like.
Oh my gosh.
And then it just kind of snowballed from there. I was really trying to keep my distance for a while because I was like, we're both in periods of transition. We're not like, I'm not trying to start something. And so, we'd like hook up, and I would try to leave, and he'd be
Yeah.
like, it's 2 in the morning. Where are you going?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I just like not trying to catch any feelings.
Yeah.
And it just, yeah, he was like so casual and chill about it, and like didn't seem to notice that I was like trying to keep
Mhm.
my distance, and so it just snowballed. We ended up I don't know, like talking a lot. We ended up keeping in touch through his all his travels, and yeah, despite me trying not to catch feelings, like, we just got, like, more and more
Mhm.
entwined, and I just got more and more into him, and then when he was in Japan for his fellowship, I really struggled with this, but I ended up flying out there to visit him, and I
Wow.
stayed with him for a week, yeah, and I was again, I'm like, it's not for him, like, my ex-roommate is from Japan, and she recommended this place to
Yeah.
me. I really just wanna go eat there before this sushi master passes away because he's really old, and so I'm, like,
Yeah.
making these excuses, but, like, I know everybody knows, it's like I'm visiting him,
Yep. Yep.
um, and so so we're, like, in Japan together, and this is where I realize all this stuff that I told you, like, I've definitely caught feelings, and, like, for the first time, I actively want this guy to be my boyfriend, and I tell him this one night, but in my head, I'm not asking him for anything. I'm not saying, like, we should, I know, like, I'm moving to New York. I don't know where he's gonna be, like, it's
Yeah.
not whatever. But I just wanna tell him how I feel and that I've, like, never felt this way before, right? So I'm just like, I really like you, like, and so I tell him all this stuff, and his response is, and we're lying in bed together when this happens, right? It's dark.
Hmm.
And I feel him stiffen up, and he's like, starts saying like, "Oh, like I'm not really like in a place to do this. I almost proposed to my ex, blah blah." And I'm just like, "Oh my god."
Yeah.
Oh my god, what have I done? Like, no, 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 no. And I'm like, I'm not asking you to be my boyfriend. I just wanted to let you know how I feel. But like, of course, now we're both in like freak out defensive modes because
Of
he's like, "Oh
course.
my," and I'm like, yeah, of course. What was I expecting? Like, I say this to this guy, like, yes, I don't have the intent to be like, no, I'm not asking you for anything, but like, what is he supposed to think, Like, what does that sound like to him? So I totally get it, but in the moment, I was like, "Oh my god." No, no, no. And so and, like, the fact that he, like, brought up the fact that he was gonna propose to his ex, I was mortified. Like, I was
Yeah.
just and now I'm, like, stuck in Japan with this dude.
How long
We're,
was
like,
this into your trip?
maybe, like, halfway in, and
Uh-huh.
he was in Tokyo, I was in Tokyo visiting him, and we had, like, done a little trip across to Japan to go to this sushi restaurant that
Hmm.
my ex-roommate had, recommended to me, and so we're, like, in Kyoto at the time and about to go to Kanazawa. So we're like making these stops where I tell him this in Kyoto. We're getting on a train the next day to go to Kanazawa to go to this sushi restaurant before we go back to Tokyo. So we're like maybe halfway in, maybe a little bit more. And like, I'm so mortified. So we go to sleep that night. We wake up the next morning. We get on this train. I'm like, I am being very aloof and cold. Like
Hmm.
I'm just like cringing inside. I don't want to interact with him. And so we're on the train. I feel so awkward. I feel by the time we get to Kanazawa, I feel like sick to my stomach. And I don't know how much of it is like the tuna onigiri that I had at the train station or like how much of it was my nerves and
Yeah.
just like
Yeah.
how mortified I was. But we get to this restaurant and I am physically sick. Like we're like at this amazing 10-seat sushi restaurant in kind of that I flew to Japan and then
Yeah.
traveled
That's
across
your whole
Japan.
reason to go to Japan,
That's my
right?
whole reason to go. And I'm feeling physically sick, and I threw up in the middle of the meal. Like, I couldn't really enjoy the food. Like, I could tell that it was so good, but, like, I was feeling so sick, I couldn't really enjoy it. Meanwhile, Kevin is like, "Mmm, so good."
Oh God.
I I go and throw up halfway through the meal. I know that they can tell, like, the people that work at this restaurant don't speak English. I don't speak Japanese. Kevin can speak a little bit of Japanese, but they can tell that I feel sick. And I think they're like being extra nice to me. And I'm also trying to be like respectful because I don't want it to be like, oh, I just feel
Yeah.
sick. Like it's not the food. But they're like extra nice to me and they like give me like a napkin at the end of the meal, like a little like handkerchief at the end of the meal. It was really sweet.
Hmm.
But I feel terrible, and I can't enjoy this meal, and I'm just physically sick, and I'm, like, still stuck here with this guy, and I don't really remember, honestly, how the rest of the trip went, but we leave that, and I'm, you know, obviously going back to, like, "Okay, this is not I need to, like, pull back from this guy."
Yeah.
He's completely oblivious, and just continues to do whatever he was doing. And eventually we get over it, and he is on his bike trip across the country. I've now moved to New York. We're still chatting. We like text every day. Um, and
What's the vibe at this point? Like, is it more, does it feel like you're back to being friends with a flirtation, or is there some sort of like, I don't know, like we've got something, but we're like in a situationship where, that kind of vibe.
yeah, it's like like both feel accurate. Like there was definitely something going on.
Mhm.
But we're just talking, and I'm very fine with that. I'm very fine with like just going with what, that was my thing, right? I was never like trying to force anything, and this was also this wasn't any different. Even though like I felt differently about him, I was like not interested in forcing anything. And actually, in the beginning when we first started hooking up, I couldn't talk to him about New York because I felt so anxious about, like, I don't want there to be any pressure that we
Mhm.
continue, because I didn't know his cross country bike trip. At first, it wasn't clear, like, what his plan was. Like, I would ask him, like, "What are
Mhm.
you doing after?" He's like, "I have no idea." So, I'm like, "I don't even know where he's gonna be." Then it comes out, and I don't know, he still denies that I had anything to do with this, but he's like, "No, no, I'm stopping in New York, and I'm just gonna, like, be in New York for a bit." And I was like, "You never told me that, like, what?" And so once that came out, I stopped talking about New York. I was like, "We're gonna be in the same city, but, like, I don't want there to be any pressure that we continue doing anything," or I felt so, awkward about it for some reason.
Yeah.
So he's texting me like, I'm gonna come into New York and I'm gonna be homeless. Like, it's hitting me that I have my tent. I don't have a place to live. I don't have a job. Like, what am I gonna
Yeah.
do?
Let's pause for a moment. I remember talking about this to you on the call, and I just remembered when he was doing this whole trip across country that he only has the stuff on his back. So he was
Yes.
camping out in pitching
Yeah.
tents like the
Yeah.
entire way from Los
Yeah.
Angeles to New York, which is insane. Rolling to New York without anything other than what you have on your back that you left
Yeah.
California with however long ago.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
insane.
He Yeah, it is insane. He started in Oregon, so he flew from LA to Oregon, and, like, in between all these things where he's, like, in Japan, in Scotland, flying to Oregon, he's staying at my place because he no longer has a place in LA, so he's,
Yeah.
like, staying with me in all these, like, in between steps, right? And yeah, it was insane. He was like he was doing it with a friend. It was like his trip, and he invited everybody he knew. Like, he would tell everybody that
Hmm.
he's doing this trip, and to everybody he'd be like, "Yeah, you want to come?" And everyone's like, "God, no."
Yeah.
That sounds horrible. He had one friend who was like, "Yeah, I'm down for that." This friend was from France, and he's like, This is a great way to like see the American countryside. Like, I've
Yeah.
always wanted to see more of America." So his one friend agreed to it. This friend was a serial smoker, both cigarettes and weed,
Oh my
and
gosh.
they had a plan to go at some point, not like they didn't have like a drop dead date. It was just like he would just keep messaging this friend being like, "Hey, so have you quit your job yet? Have
Yeah.
you started training?" And his friend was like, "Oh no, I haven't told my work yet." And he's just like, "Okay, like when do we go?" So he was kind of like waiting on this friend. Um, and like a week before the trip, he was like, "Hey, like, so have you been doing any training? Have you quit?" He didn't quit smoking the whole time.
Oh
He was
my
like,
God.
"Yeah, I did 10 pull-ups today." And Kevin's like, "What? Like, that's not what you need to
Yeah.
be doing." And so, he ended up that friend quit cold turkey on the trip, and even, like, flying to Oregon, he was like, "I'm not 100% sure that this guy's gonna show up." But he
Yeah.
did. He did, and he, quit cold turkey on the bike trip, and for the first probably 2 weeks was, like, throwing up every day because he's, like, biking 60 to 80 miles a day,
Yeah.
and he just, like, quit cold turkey, smoking both weed and cigarettes, and, like, had not done any training.
Yeah. I mean, that's that is a tough. I mean, I remember when I was in LA, I would do like sometimes a round trip from where I lived in Venice to like Hermosa Beach, and that was like 25 miles or something round trip. I
Yeah,
remember how tired I was, and
yeah,
I biked fairly often. I can't imagine doing 60 to 80 miles a day without training and also
yeah.
kicking six too. That's crazy.
Yeah, yeah, and, like, some of that is pretty mountainous, like, they're
Yeah.
going through Wyoming, and they're going
Yeah.
out
Yeah.
these areas. And so the other thing with that is because he was, like, kinda waiting on this friend or, like, it just wasn't super, like, organized, it was very, like, off the cuff. They didn't leave until September,
Oh
which
my
is
gosh.
really
Cold.
late
Yeah.
to be
Yeah.
going east, and Kevin is also not, like, a biker, like, he's not I mean,
Yeah.
he would train by, like, going on these bike rides, but he's not, like, a biker person, it's just a thing that he wanted to do, he's not a serious biker, so they would meet people coming west, and these people are, like, serious bikers who have,
Yeah.
like, done these trails, and they'd be like, "Oh, you guys are really late season, you're not gonna make it."
Yeah.
And 3 weeks in 3 weeks in, they got snowed in Wyoming,
Oh
and
my gosh.
I was like, "You guys are not gonna make it." Like, nobody
Yeah.
had any faith that these guys were gonna actually make it across the US, but they did. They got into New York, the end of November,
Wow.
and yeah, it was, like, around Thanksgiving time they got in, I think it was, like, the day before it started snowing in New
Oh my
York.
gosh. I mean, like, I'm just like thinking logistically, like cold weather, like
Yeah.
what you need to keep your body warm, both to sleep in, to ride your bike in, to like, you know, I just can't. This is youth is not for the weak. I mean, especially, especially, especially boys. Like, I don't know. Only like a 23-year-old boy would think that this is a good idea to do.
Okay, so he was yeah, and he was 27 at the time, which is,
Oh,
like, it's young, but
yeah.
it's not 23, right? But it
You're
is I
right.
mean, you're still in your 20s, but he was just like, yeah, he saw somebody I think he, like, saw on Facebook a friend who had, like, done it, and he's like, "Oh, that looks like a cool thing to have done. I wanna do that," and, like,
Yeah.
embark on this crazy journey. So, anyways, he made it, but he was, starting to kind of be like, "Oh, like, what am I doing? Like, I'm gonna be homeless." Meanwhile, I got a job in New York. I left LA a month later than him, but I got to New York sooner because I took a plane like a normal person, and I got my life set up. I got an apartment, I got a job, and at the time, I was working for a digital agency, and my department, my boss was, like, actively looking for a Java developer for one of their projects. And I knew that he knew Java from his
Hmm.
he mastered out with comp sci as one of he did
Yeah.
comp sci and neuroscience. So then I was like, "Okay, I know this guy knows Java." I was like, "We are looking for a Java developer if you are interested in, like, me sending your resume to my boss." And he's like, "That'd be great." So I did that. He gets into New York. He has an interview set up. So he gets into New York on a Saturday. He has an interview set up for Monday. Sunday, he's, like, buying clothes
Mm,
because he doesn't have any clothes. Like, he
right.
has, like, 2 pairs of boxers that he had on this trip and, like, I mean, obviously no, like, interview, like, work.
Oh, they probably have holes in them at this point too.
I
Like,
was like, "That's so gross." That was that was, like, 2 boxers? Really? For 3 months? Okay. So, he anyway, so he goes and buys clothes, goes in for this interview Monday morning where I work. Um Sorry, I should pause and say that by this point, he is now living at my apartment. He's like I mean, living he is staying with me because
yeah,
he doesn't have another place to stay. He has other friends in New York, but it just I was, like, the closest person at that
you're
point, so
cute and there's a flirtation and he's stayed with you
there's a
before. He knows it's good vibes and I'm sure
yeah.
after being on his with his buddy for 2 months, he's ready for some female energy too. So
Yeah, I'm sure that's true, yes. So he's staying with me. He comes in to my office, has this interview with my boss. My boss, I don't see him. He leaves. My boss comes back to where I'm sitting, and she's like, "Oh my God, Melissa, he's perfect. Thank you so much. He's great." And I was like, "What did you just hire him?" And she's like, "Yeah." So she hires him on the spot. It's now dawning on me, oh my God, we're living together and we're gonna be working together.
yeah.
What have we just done? And so I text him and I'm like, "Oh, so you got the job." And he's like, I think he's thinking the same thing, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm so sorry." And so for the next 2.5 months, we live together, we work together, we go to lunch together every day and bitch about how much we hate this company. We hang out together after work. We just do I see this person's face 24/7 for the next 2.5 months. Um, and we still like each other,
Yeah. I
and
was going to ask,
we're
like, what did this do for your feelings? The feelings that you caught before?
it
Like,
was it was chill. Like, there was,
yeah.
there was no it was just nice, and it was
Yeah.
like, I I have this person literally 24/7. I'm not sick of them. I still want more of them. Like,
Hmm.
and we were both like, "Well, that's a good sign." I think after that, in December, I went to Hong Kong, and this is how it happened. He told me something about him talking to somebody and said, like, "Oh, my girlfriend, blah, blah, blah." And I was like, "What? You're who?"
Hmm.
And he's like, "Oh, yeah, I mean, are you not my girlfriend?" And so that's kind of how it happened. It was just
Yeah.
really, it was like, well, I mean, like, what else are we at this point?
I would have been a little petty, I think. I would still be like, I'd be like, well, you told me that blah, 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 blah. And like, why would I think this? Like,
I I don't, honestly, I feel like that Japan thing was so traumatic. I
yeah.
have zero memory of, like, what that did to our interaction or relationship afterwards, and I
Mm,
only remember once we were, like, really together, did I bring it up again
yeah.
and kinda be like, "Yeah, that was horrible."
Mm,
And so, yeah, then we talked about it, and he was like, from his perspective, he was like, also had feelings, but, had just gotten out of this 4-year relationship and didn't trust himself that it wasn't just like a rebound thing.
hmm.
Um, but started to, could see that it was like something more, but like didn't want to. So he's like, is it a rebound? Can I trust my feelings? Also, we're like not in the same place and like transitioning. He's just like, I don't know, right? Like, he's just literally like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And it's very boy brain, right? It's very like,
Yeah.
you're not thinking about how this comes out or how this would sound to
Right.
the
I
other
mean,
person. But
as you were describing it, I was like, I've been there, and every woman I know has been there. I mean, in your 20s, especially, like
yeah,
wanting something more from somebody that isn't ready from something more. And I mean, but it's very brave, I think, that you did say something, because then you're not just sitting there waiting for something to happen. Like, sort of opening that door, like, led you, I guess, to where you guys are. So,
yeah. And I truly wasn't expecting him again, because I also felt this way about, like, I don't know where we're both going to end up. I'm just somebody that really wears my heart on my sleeve, and
hmm.
if I feel something strongly, I want the other person to know. And so I was truly not trying to have it lead anywhere. I truly just wanted to express to him that I really liked him, and I was
Yeah.
trying to illustrate what that felt like in terms of, I haven't really felt this particular feeling before, and that's
Yeah.
notable to me, and
Yeah.
I'm trying to communicate that to you, and I just did it really badly, and then he responded really badly, so, it was, anyways,
You were in your
it broke my
20s. Communication gets much easier as you get older. Now I just tell everyone I like them. Like, the first night, I'm like, I like you. It used to be like such a big thing. I'm like, I'll wait for like 3 months. I'll be like, yeah, I
Yeah,
kind of like you. I was like very
yeah,
aloof. And now I'm like, yeah, I like you. Like, you better call me tomorrow.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I
let's
don't
not
care
waste
anymore.
time here. Let's not, yeah. What are we
So,
doing?
yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway, okay. So now you're boyfriend, girlfriend, you're living together, you're working together, you're like besties as well, spending all your time
yes.
together. So,
Yes, yes. So then he moves out in January. He finds an apartment. Like, the intent was not to, he sort of accidentally moved in, but he found an apartment. He moved into that place in January. So we're now like living apart, but we still spend like all of
mhm.
our time together. He has a roommate. I think 10 months later, he ends up kicking her out, and then I move in because my lease was up, and we're like, okay, let's like, so I move into his apartment because it's bigger and nicer, whatever. So then we're just living together for the next whatever 6 years that we're in New York, this apartment that I moved into with him, it was a tenement style building. It was in
Mm-hmm.
Chinatown, really little Italy. It was like on the edge of Chinatown, but it was definitely a Chinatown building. My landlord was also from Hong Kong. I loved him. Like we loved the building. We loved our landlord. We loved the
Mm-hmm.
neighborhood. We loved everything about it. It was a tenement building, which means that we didn't have a bathroom. We had a toilet closet and we had a shower that
Oh,
opened up
wow.
into our kitchen. And so I would like open the shower and like could touch my stove right there. And so
Wow.
we had one sink that was both our kitchen and bathroom sink. And after 6 years, I was like, I love this place. I love our apartment. I love our home. I love this neighborhood. But like, I'm kind of ready for a bathroom again. Like, I kind of
Yeah.
having a place to put my toiletries that's not above
Mm-hmm.
my kitchen sink. Um, and Kevin was like, absolutely not. Like, if we leave this apartment, it was also rent stabilized.
Yeah.
So he's like, we leave this apartment, like, we might as well just finally leave New York. And so that started the process of us like figuring out how to leave. We didn't know where we wanted to go next. So our idea was to just like, okay, if we're going to throw our stuff in storage anyways to move it, let's do that and then like go live in Europe for a while and work remotely and just bounce around to different
Oh, love
countries
that.
every month.
Yeah.
So we were doing that. We left New York July 2019, went to Europe, just like bounced around, didn't have a particular end date, would only plan like one city in advance. And it was great. And also it was it was a lot. It was a lot. It started to wear on me, and I think by the time COVID hit in March of
Mm-hmm.
2020 and we were in lockdown, we got trapped in Spain. Um, we got trapped in Spain. I mean, we chose to not leave because it was just easier and made more sense to stay. Um, but I feel like I was almost like everybody else felt kind of like the wanderlust because of being
Yeah.
trapped inside. I was like, "Oh my god, a break." Like
Yeah.
we can just slow down
Yeah.
and be in one place for a bit. So I was almost grateful for the like just like the force stop.
Yeah.
um but I was like planning ahead. I was like, I don't think that we're married at this point already. So
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I don't think that this is going to go away anytime soon. And if we're going to be trapped inside, I want to like build a home. Um, I was like definitely feeling that like nesting. I missed
Mm-hmm.
community, bouncing around
Mm-hmm.
to all these different places. My husband's super introverted. He does not need people. I am not like that. I need
Yeah.
people. I need
Yeah.
community. I really missed it. And I was like, this is a great situation, honestly. Like, I'm not upset about this. It's nice being here. We have like our own space. Nobody's panic buying in this country. Like, it's fine. But I also don't want to just like be here
Mm-hmm.
for an undetermined amount of time while COVID rages on.
Did you guys have like visas for a long period of time? Because I was like thinking about Schengen and like you're only allowed to stay there 3 months. And I'm like, I don't know never thought about how that worked with COVID.
Yes. So we had Spanish residency cards,
Okay.
um, which this is credit to my husband. He did all the research for this. There was a visa. I don't know if it still exists. This visa existed in Spain, Portugal, Germany, and I think Italy were the main places that we were looking at. They all had the same visa that was, I forgot what it was called, but the intent of the visa was for retired people.
Mm,
And it was like, you're not working in this country. So you're bringing in foreign money, but you're not taking somebody's job in this country, which
got
was
it.
perfect for us because
Yeah.
we both kept our jobs, our New York jobs, and we were both
Yeah.
working remotely. And so we qualified for the visa, but when we applied for it, everybody was like, the intent of the visa is for retired people. And we're like, great, but that's the intent. Like, we meet all the requirements, so like, are you going
Yeah.
to give us the visa or no? Once you have those residency cards, you can reapply for them every year. And after 5 years, you can apply for a passport. You can apply for citizenship.
Hmm.
And so we were going to do that, but we ended up not being able to because of COVID. Like, we would have to go back to Bilbao, and we were in Sevilla at the time. So, and we couldn't travel between districts because of COVID, so we couldn't renew it, but, that's fine. Um, but yeah, that's how we were able to stay.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you moved back to LA and that's where you are now. So,
Yes. And it was tough. I think through all of this, I was, I don't know, I think some stuff started to come out for me. And I had a lot of like conflicting things going on. And I think I was like increasingly unhappy in the relationship, but completely terrified to admit that to myself or anybody
mhm,
else. Because if I said that I was unhappy in the relationship, it's like, what does that mean? Where does that leave us?
mhm,
And so I didn't say anything. I just kind of like bottled it up for a while. But it would come out it would come out in ways, and I think, my husband definitely noticed that something was wrong, and it got to the point where he called me out on it. He's like, "What is going on with you? Like, are you just
mhm,
not happy?" And that's what kind of triggered it for me. Like, I hadn't admitted it to myself, but him saying that, I was like, "Oh my God, yeah, I am not happy."
mhm.
Um, and I think part of that, we had bought this house that accidentally was a 5-bedroom house because
Wow.
crazily, there was so much competition on 3 and 4 bedroom houses that we were looking at, and we got priced out of everything, and we got this 5-bedroom house for like, I don't know, probably $200,000-300,000 cheaper than we could have gotten a
Wow.
house that was like half its size. And I was like,
Yeah.
well, that doesn't make sense. Like, I guess we have to get the 5-bedroom house. But it was just the two of us, and I felt like there wasn't enough life in the house. I felt kind of trapped. I felt
Mhm.
like, "Oh my god, okay, we have this house, like, this is
Well,
it."
this is
Like,
like completely also, you come from a tenement apartment and then you've been living like bouncing around Europe. So you've lived very small for a long
yeah,
time. I mean,
yeah,
he rode across the country on a bike, and then all of a sudden it's a huge home and you're, really kind of, I guess, rooted there. So I can see
yeah.
that being a huge change.
Yeah, yeah, and I think part of what made it difficult for me was that, like, we had kind of, like, I feel like we were always really aligned. We always had very
Hmm.
similar values. We're very different people, but we've always had very similar values, and I felt like it started to highlight our differences, and we kinda went in separate directions where he was super happy to have this, like, large house, and he's like, "I can finally have a wood shop in the garage, and I can have all my music stuff," and
Hmm.
all his things require a lot of space, and he really, like, leaned into I was the one that pushed us to get a house. He was really hesitant about it first, but then once we had it, he was, like, all in on suburban life,
Yeah.
and I was like, "Oh my god, like, what have I done? Like, I don't want this. I don't want this big place. I don't want, like, we're just gonna fill it with stuff." That gave me a different kind of anxiety because I was, like, dealing with, like, family members' stuff at the time, and it's,
Yeah.
like, so burdensome. Um and I was missing the city, I was missing New York. The LA landscape kinda depressed me, like,
Hmm.
I'm from Hong Kong also, like, I'm a city
Yeah.
girl, I love public transportation, I love walking, that's part of why
Yeah.
I moved to New York, and that was my favorite thing about living in New York, and then to come back to LA, it was really like a reverse culture shock again, and, I feel like LA in some ways is really hostile to community, and then especially coming
Hmm.
back during
Hmm.
COVID, even though we both had friends here and family, it felt like it felt like there wasn't the community that I wanted,
Yeah.
and I was having a hard time building that. And then, like, we were driving everywhere, and it was so depressing, and, like, I was like, we drive past these, like, giant Best Buy and Walmart parking lots
Yeah.
and, like, temporary storage for cars. Meanwhile, LA has this, like, huge homelessness problem, and especially
Mhm.
during COVID, and I'm like, "This makes no sense." Like, these parking lots are like New York City blocks. Like, you could have so
Yeah.
much affordable housing here, and the city has such a affordable housing problem, and yet, like, so much land is dedicated to just the temporary storage of vehicles. Like, this makes
Mhm.
no sense. So I was really affected by this, and I was like, "What are we doing here? What are we doing back in LA? What are we doing back in the US? Like, what
Yeah.
why am I here?" And then at the same time, like, felt really trapped because we had just bought this house, and my husband was, like, all in, and I was like, "I wanna leave," and we just weren't agreeing. Um, And then at the same time, we had started trying for kids. I
Mm-hmm.
thought I was ready. We bought the house, like, we moved into the house in August of 2021, and that's basically like when we started trying for kids. And I think that in itself brought up a lot of unresolved trauma because my mom passed away when I was 15,
Mm.
and there was a lot coming out about like thinking about having kids here and teaching them, being the only one to like speak Cantonese to them not
Mm-hmm.
having like a Chinese grandmother. And, my husband's mom, I love her. She's a wonderful mother-in-law, but she's not my mom. She's not
Mm-hmm.
Chinese. She's not a lot of things
Yeah.
that my mom is. And I just didn't have that. And I felt really like, so a lot of stuff came up about my mom that I couldn't process her passing away because I was 15 and I realized I hadn't really returned to that to really
Yeah.
process it as an adult. And so all of that stuff just came out, and I'd be like
Mm-hmm.
folding laundry and just like suddenly like keel over crying, just like
Oh my
missing my mom
gosh.
so much. And it had been like, almost 20 years that she had passed away at this point. So I'm like going through all this stuff and I'm feeling kind of mentally unstable, like just, not happy, stuff coming out about my mom. Meanwhile, like, okay, I say that I've been lucky in love. I feel like my mom has not been lucky in love. And there was a lot of I could do a whole other podcast episode on her love life, but
Mm-hmm.
essentially, she had this love of her life from college, and she kind of left him for my dad, who was like a safe choice.
Mm-hmm.
And um, there was just a lot of like parallels that I was seeing, and I think like that, like my mom stuff and like where I was in my marriage, it was all affecting me. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, is Kevin my dad? Is he the safe choice? Am I
Mm-hmm.
making the same mistake as my mom? So all of that was coming out. I don't think that's true anymore. My Kevin is very much not my dad, but there were a lot of things like, oh, it was also 4 years into her marriage and she like questioned things. So anyways, I just needed to work through a lot of stuff. I went through like a lot of therapy.
And it was also COVID too, where, there is just in general, everyone is like
Yeah,
dealing with a lot of anxiety and,
yeah.
loneliness and sadness too.
Yeah, yeah, and I thought at first it didn't affect me, but it was like it was a
Yeah.
slower, more it was a quieter, subtler thing
Insidious. Yeah.
that was it was more insidious for sure. I guess to round that out, meanwhile, all of this is happening, we're in couples therapy, we're like considering getting divorced. Like it gets to that point.
Mm-hmm.
And through this, we find out that if we want to have kids, we need to do IVF because he has a genetic mutation
Mm-hmm.
on his Y chromosome that is like, it's called a Y chromosome microdeletion mutation, where it's
Mm-hmm.
like literally parts of your Y chromosome are getting deleted. And a lot of men who have this don't produce sperm at all. He has some sperm, but it's like not enough to get
Mm-hmm.
pregnant naturally. So we like find out this news and we're like, okay, that's another blow. And so we're like, okay, we know that if we want to continue in this relationship and we want to have kids, we will need to do IVF.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so we're wrestling with all these things. I go through a lot of therapy. I start to like come out of it. I start to feel better. I start to feel more like myself. I can't say there's one thing. I mean, I don't know if it's there was one thing that like made it feel like, oh, I like feel better now. I feel like myself, but it's not this. I mean, the thing that triggered it was like I painted one of our bathrooms black, and that like made me feel better.
Yeah, like you were in charge of your own life. You're like,
I
I don't know.
it did give me like this empowerment, and I was also like, I love black, like,
Yeah.
and that made me this like dark color in the bathroom made me feel better. Like, but I was also doing a lot of therapy. I was doing a lot of
Yeah.
underground work with it, and like we had been working on our relationship, and like I was going through all this stuff. So I think it was all of that, but it was like this like it was like a funny trigger of just like, oh, this one
Mm-hmm.
thing made me feel better. So I start to come out of it. We decide to go through with the IVF. And we have a daughter now. She just turned 2. She's the best thing in the world. We are obsessed with her. We love her so much. She's so fun. And so this is like a, it's a happy ending. I think like I just had to work through a lot of stuff, and I think that in the end, I feel really grateful that we weren't able to get pregnant naturally, because when I thought that I was ready to have kids and we started trying, I was definitely not ready. I
Yeah.
was not really ready, and I needed to go through, like, it was like 2 years of work that I had to do on myself, before I was truly ready. And so by the time we did the IVF and I was pregnant, like, I was so sure
Yeah.
about him again, and I was so
Yeah.
sure. I felt so much stronger in our relationship. I felt so much surer about him, and I felt so there was no longer any ounce of doubt that, like, we were gonna move forward and have kids together and do all of this. So, yeah, I guess, like, it's not always easy, like, we
No.
found each other, and we had, like, a kind of ridiculous, story in the beginning, but it's yeah, it's everything's always there's always a challenge, right? And I
Yeah.
felt stronger coming out the other side, so
Yeah. No, thank you for sharing all that. I think that's important to recognize and for people to hear too, is like, successful relationships are always going to have ups and downs. They're always going to have high times and low times. And, whether it is through financial strife, whether it's through illness, whether it's through mental health issues, whether it's through, career issues, like there's so many things that happen within the course of your life that can be a sunny moment, a bright moment, or a really dark moment. And, for some folks and for some couples, like you might be having a high moment and your partner might be not having a good moment in life at the same time. And like,
yeah.
it's hard to align at that time too. But, a lot of what you're talking about, like going through what you went through, going through like, and then having to go through IVF and everything and going through the therapy, like, had you not had that time to really devote to healing yourself and like working on yourself, you probably would have had some postpartum, or maybe you still did, but like, a lot of
Didn't.
aside from the hormonal part of it, like a lot of my friends or people that I know of that have had postpartum, a lot of it is just from the lifestyle shift. So if you're already still going through that sort of transition and trying to figure it out, and then you have a child on top of that, that's big. And then, just like you said, dealing with that grief that you never really worked through, and
Yeah.
confronting that, and having your husband be there, show up for you in those moments and say like, I'm sure it was very hard for him too, but show up for you, stand beside you, carry his own weight through it, like go through this whole process together. Like, I mean, that says a lot. My parents were married for 45 years until my dad passed away. And, they did not have a storybook romance. They, they definitely didn't. They loved each other very much, but, in a different way than, some of the other stories out there that you hear. But they were great partners. They respected each other a lot and they loved each other a lot. And so, and I know about some of their hard times too. Like, every relationship has that. So I think it's really important for people to hear that and like be willing to work through it, because there is, if there is enough aligned, then, hopefully there is a light on the other side. So, and it
Yeah.
sounds like there was
Yeah.
for you guys.
Yeah, yeah. It's not always easy, right? It's not always like sunshine and rainbows. Like, relationships take work, and the ones that
Yeah.
last, it takes work. Everybody has hard times, and being married to another person is tough. And we started dating when I was 24 years old. Like,
Yeah.
that's really young.
Yeah.
That's really young.
100%.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think I feel lucky that it's almost like I grew into more of the person that made sense for my husband, and he was
Mm,
just kinda waiting for me all along,
mm,
because he's always been he's very stable, he was always, like, kind of an old man,
mm-hmm.
and I used to say, like, because I was kind of a party girl, And
Yeah.
that is so not him. Like,
Yeah.
he doesn't like bars because they're loud.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I was like, "Why were you into me? Like, why did you like me?" You know? And I feel like it's almost like he knew that there was this person underneath this 20-something-year-old party girl that
Yeah.
was the person that would make sense for him, 10 years down the line, like,
Yeah.
um, that I kinda would grow into this person that would fit his lifestyle and fit who he was,
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Well, there's also, I mean, the yin and the yang too. Like, I mean, it's always like, I've always been one of the, I wouldn't say party girl, but maybe so. I've always dated guys that are a little bit more reserved than me, I guess you would say. Like, I date a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah.
introverts. I date very practical people. I am the free spirit
Mm,
in the
yes,
relationship always.
yes.
And I am very much like, I joke that like I live in the moment. I've always lived in the moment. I don't like to think about things like financial things and stuff like that. Like
Yeah.
but I date people that do. And I think that's also like, I'm sure you brought out like the playfulness, the fun. Like he probably really appreciates like that you see things in a different way than he does, and that like
Yeah.
the ways that you force him out of his comfort zone by just being who you are, and by like maybe he wouldn't have been up for bouncing around Europe for a full year if you weren't there for the journey with him. Like, who knows? So I think that that's important. But to your point, I think it's also recognizing that we all change as we get older too, and grow,
Mhm.
and like being willing
Yeah.
to sort of be flexible with that growth. And sometimes it's not realistic. Like sometimes people who meet in their 20s, just like they're in for a moment in time, and then they, their paths separate, and that's just what makes sense. But it seems like from everything that you've shared, you guys are just very much aligned in a lot of other important ways, and that
Yeah.
you were best friends, and all of these other things that are just so critical and rare, honestly, to find in a partner, that that gives you the stable foundation to continue to work together and confront those challenges as they come, because they always do come.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to hear sort of your advice for the singles that are out there, those that are looking for hope and maybe struggling with dating or relationships or, partnerships, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think my big piece is to not focus on it so much, right? Because I think that, like, that that desperation, or like that, like, extreme focus on, "Oh, I just gotta find a partner," is not really serving anybody. And I would say just to, like, work on yourself and learn to be happy with yourself, because that's what attracts somebody, right? Like, somebody who is like happy in their life, they're confident with who they are, they've like found their thing, or even or looking, but they're just like being genuine people, and there's something interesting about them. And so just to like focus in rather than focus out on this partner that you idealize. I feel like I feel like love often finds you when you're not looking, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
um, it'll come. But work on yourself, because even if it doesn't come, then you still have your own happiness, right? Like, you're still responsible for your own happiness, and you like found a way to be happy by yourself.
I think that's great advice. I always, this is one of the reasons why I don't like app stories for my podcast. And I know a lot of people find love and find their person on apps, but I think that there is that sort of like, I'm just going to look, and that person is going to be in this list of 30 people that show up. And like, it just so happens, like, and I'm not saying that it can't work out that way, but I think that's like going out and like looking for love in the wrong place, so to speak, versus like in trying to fit either into the mold that you think somebody wants, or trying to pick someone that fits what you think you want, when in reality,
Yeah.
like a lot of the times the people we end up with are folks that break some of the rules that we've set for ourselves. Maybe they're shorter, maybe they're taller, maybe they are older or younger, maybe they look different than we thought they would, maybe they're a different
Right.
religion. It doesn't, but like you just connect with people when you're doing what you love and they're doing what they love, and you just like, oh, we both like the same things. Oh, we're at the same place. We like this
Right.
same hobby or music or whatever. And I think that's where you have the best luck is when you already have that sort of shared environment and you find joy in this and then find joy in finding the joy together. Right. So.
Right, right. Yeah, you're meeting somebody in the process of just genuinely living your life. And
Exactly.
there's something to be said for that. I think my other piece of advice, and I know all of this is like just easier said than done, but I think like a lot of people tend to write off guys or girls, but I feel like there's like a strong sort of like man hating element, um especially when women are like, they've had bad experiences and they're like, you know, older and they've encountered a lot of bad guys. And so now like the entire gender is just written off. And I feel like you will miss a lot of great people that way because there are
Mhm.
great guys out there. And you just got to give people a chance and
Yeah.
not just say like, oh, well, all men suck and all men are, this and that and whatever. And it's hard because like, yeah, there are a lot of guys that do suck and there's a lot, like the loud machismo, whatever, that just gets a lot of attention, right? But yeah, there are genuinely
Yeah.
wonderful men, and you just treat them like people. Like maybe get to know them as friends first, and you
Yeah.
you never know.
I also think one of the things that I've been really kind of focused on this year is like being intentional with dating. And, I think this kind of carries on too, is that a lot of the sort of hostility is when you have like I have sort of my non-negotiables that I've created through the course of this podcast that are things that now are very important to me. And if I meet somebody and they don't have one of those, when we don't fit in this like non-negotiable area, I basically recognize that from the gate and I don't expect them
Mhm.
to change and be,
Yeah.
fit into this category anymore. And I think people need to be willing to let someone go that's not a fit instead of expecting them to change. Because if they are not a fit, then they're going to do the things that really upset you and are going to hurt
Mhm.
you. And then you're going to see them in a poor light when the reality
Yeah.
was it was not a fit from the beginning. So, I mean, there was
Mhm.
somebody recently that I met that I liked, and he was, seems like a great guy, handsome. Like we had great conversation and everything. But one of my intentional things is like, I am looking for consistency and I'm looking for someone that's intentional. And this person was only like wanting to hang out like same day, same night, etc. And I'm just like, I've been down that road before. And
Yeah.
I think he seems like a great guy, but I just don't think he's at the same place in dating that I'm at. And
Yeah.
rather than just like, expecting him to show up in the way that I want to or whatever, I'm just recognizing like we're just not on the same path, and that's okay, And so I think if
Yeah.
more people just sort of instead of saying like, oh, someone's terrible, just recognize at the beginning like, hey, like maybe this person's only looking for something casual. That's okay. That's where
Yeah.
they are in life. Maybe they just got to have a longer-term relationship and they need that at this point.
Yeah.
That's not for me. That doesn't mean they're bad, but that's not for me. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that's a big part of it too.
That's a really good point, but I think there's also like recognizing the real non-negotiables about like
Yeah.
what you need and what you need in a relationship versus like something a little bit more superficial like I need him to be a lawyer or a doctor, I need him to make
Yeah.
like X amount of money. You know what I mean? And it's like
100%.
that kind of requirement is not going to serve you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can say that I want someone financially stable, but that can be
Yes.
somebody that is a blue collar worker. It doesn't matter
Right.
what they do as long as they are someone that's not going to spend recklessly, buy Porsches that they can't afford, and, not pay their bills on time. Like there is, they're financially stable, can take many different avenues. So yeah, I think that's, to your point, I think that's important. If you focus on the shallow things, that's what you're going to get, is a shallow person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or shallow relationship.
A shallow relationship. Exactly. So
I think one other piece of advice that I think is really important is like, communication. And I guess this is less about like before you meet somebody, but more like when you're in something with somebody. I feel like communicating with them constantly and letting them know where you are and how you're feeling and not shying away from those hard conversations is really important. And I know that everybody says that, but I feel like I really lived it where the times that I withheld how I was truly feeling for my husband is what made me feel more and more disconnected from him. And once that door opened of like, okay, being honest with myself and being honest with him about where I was and what I was thinking, what I was feeling, it like brought us back, I was able to talk to him more and come back to that friendship. And, so just the importance of communicating, I think I just want to emphasize.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. When you told him that you weren't happy, that is a very scary conversation to have, because it can change the direction of your entire life and everything that you thought was happening. And also caring for this other person and knowing how those words are going to affect them. That's extremely hard. But having the courage to say that and having that conversation with him is what brought you back to where you are in a happy, bright spot now, because otherwise, because otherwise, you do things that, I'm just the royal you, so to speak. We have tendencies, if you avoid conversations, then to let those things continue to build, and then like creating situations where we're angry and resentful, and then they get angry and resentful and reactive, and then it's reactive, and then it's reactive, and then suddenly where you were here, now you're here, and that's a lot harder to come back from when you're this far apart and you've now said and done things that are hurtful and like, whatever. It makes it harder. So I think having those hard conversations, when you feel it in the moment, as scary as it can be, it sets you on the right path, or path at least to some conclusion, whether it's working together or deciding to separate, but a conclusion that's going to work the best for you. So.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much, Emily.
Thank you.
Thanks for letting me tell the story.
I think I love to feature all different kinds of stories on here. And I think that it's so important for people to hear like about relationships at work and like why they work, and the ways, the nonlinear ways sometimes that, there's some people that meet and then they're like together from day one. It's always been like that. But there's some people that there's a longer journey, and then there's obstacles along the way. So I think that this is important for people to hear, and I really appreciate you being willing to share your story with me.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning into this week's episode of Kismet. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe or leave us a comment, as it really helps. If you have your own Kismet story you'd like to share, please send it to me at kismetstoriiespodcast@gmail.com. Also, Melissa shared a couple things that I wanted to add in the show notes. She has a Hong Kong themed card game that she made with a friend. It's available via the link below. And she also has included a scavenger hunt that her husband put together for a very elaborate surprise proposal. It's amazing, y'all. You have to check this out. Give it a look in the show notes. And until next time, be bold, be kind, and be open to everyday magic. Your person may be just down the street, or they may have actually once lived in your very same complex on your same street.